It's another day, left jab, right jab, this is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim, looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting, if you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go, I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show, this the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? UFC Vegas 21. We have an interesting main event here. We got Leon Rocky Edwards making his long-awaited return to the octagon, taking on the very tough, the very active Belal Muhammad, and active in a variety of ways. This guy fights often. He's very active in the octagon with his pressure, with his forward movement. You know, pretty much all of his fights tend to be somewhat entertaining. So I'm excited for this matchup here. Other than that, we got Misha Cirkunov making his return to the octagon. More talent thrown into the light heavyweight division. It's been a little bit since he's fought. You know, so a couple other interesting fights too. We'll take a look at the card here. Some that stand out. I'm really interested in the Ige Gavin Tucker fight. It's an excellent fight for both those guys there to really continue to make a name for themselves, particularly Gavin Tucker. Gavin Tucker is a guy, that'd be a big win for him there. Eryk Anders, Darren Stewart should be a slugfest. Kape versus Aldrich should be an entertaining fight as well, taking place there in the flyweight division on the female side. And yeah, we'll be getting into the entire card. You guys know we got to talk about UFC 259. I'm very excited to talk about UFC 259. It was a profitable card for me. But at the same time, I'm very upset as well. My biggest play of the night, you guys already know, Petr Yan, 6.5 unit play on Petr Yan. We'll get to that fight here in a minute. Let's start at the bottom. We'll work our way up to the top. I'll tell you guys how the card went for me. And not even just as far as betting goes, but I just thought it was a very entertaining fight card. It was a big night of fights, and I think they lived up to the hype. Trevin Jones showed up, took out Bautista. I was surprised to see that Jones is legit now. That's 2 finishes in a row with the striking. I did say that he has the potential to knock out Bautista, but I thought Bautista would have looked a little bit better in there even before getting caught because he was losing the fight. He was getting dominated in there. So we'll keep an eye on Trevin Jones. First play of the night, Uros Medic takes out All-In Cruz. Got this line at -160. It was a 5 unit play. I was very, very high on Uros. You guys know that. You heard the breakdown last week. I hope all you guys jumped on that play. I'm surprised the line was where it even was. This guy Uros has shown a lot of potential and seems just to be a star in the making. Comes in phenomenal shape. The striking is nasty, very well-rounded. Keep an eye on him moving forward. That was easy money. I hope all you guys were on that. Amanda Lemos showed up. Fight played out just as I thought it would. I wish I had an official play in that. I thought the line was a little bit too high, but we talked about how Lemos it was going to look a lot better than Souza in there, and she did. Sean Brady showed up, took out Jake Matheus. Then we had Carlos Ulberg, lost to Kennedy and Chukwa. That was a very entertaining fight. I wanted nothing to do with this fight. A lot of you guys were talking about, is Carlos going to be the next star? I told you guys, pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see him get a couple more fights here, a couple more professional fights. His striking's good, but honestly, I don't think it's all it's lived up to be. I think he's a talented striker, but it's not like he's going out there and he's a magician. I really don't see that. I mean, if you saw this fight here, Kennedy's body was open so much during the exchanges these guys went through. And by the way, an amazing fight too, right? An amazing fight. These guys were just going at it back and forth. Carlos was hurting Kennedy, but Kennedy was so durable, he came back, and eventually he got the knockout. I thought if Carlos would have slowed things down, made this, a little bit of a slower pace fight where he could have really used his skills a little bit more on the feet and kept himself out of danger and not made it a slugfest, he would have won the fight. But again, pump the brakes on Carlos. He's a tough dude. He'll be back. But I know a lot of guys have been high on Carlos, and I really wasn't necessarily one of them. I think he does have a lot of potential, but pump the brakes. And that was a fight he should have won. But again, I stayed away from that. Tim Elliott showed up, took out Jordan Espinosa. Good to see Tim Elliott in there still pulling off victories. Kaikar France showed up. He took out Rogerio Bontaran. And again, as far as just my overall picks, what I gave to you guys, I didn't have action on either of those fights, of course, but I did. I lost both those right there. But as a whole on this card, I picked the card very, very well. And we'll talk about the dogs that I chose that are coming up here in a minute. But Elliott just ragdolled Espinosa. Kai Kara-France was losing that fight, but he was very tough. Got back up to his feet, got the knockout. But I told you guys, Bontorin is a very talented fighter. Almost had the finish early in the first round. He almost had the rear naked choke. You saw he's a tough dude. He has some good power in his hands, but the jiu-jitsu is very, very high caliber. I like what he brings there, but wasn't able to get that sub. France is looking good as well. So Askarov loses to Joseph Benavidez. This was my second play on the card. Very small play, 2-unit play on Benavidez. Took a shot in the dog, the legend Joe B there. He didn't show up. He didn't look necessarily how we've seen him in the past. I think age is starting to creep up on Joe B. He's 36 now, and I think Askar is also a very legit fighter, so we'll keep an eye on him, as we have been anyway. And then in the next fight, Kyler Phillips. I did pick Phillips, the dog, to win here. Was not an official play of mine. Probably should have been, but Song is a very talented fighter. But I just thought Phillips could definitely went out there and took this fight, and he did. It was a close fight, and Phillips is very well rounded. He was a whiz on the mat. Got the fight down there a couple times. The striking is very, very is nice as well, and good win for Phillips there. Dominic Cruz takes out Casey Keeney. This was another L for me here. But stick with me, boys. We got some W's coming. Casey Keeney, another smaller play. I think it was a 3-unit play there. And Keeney just didn't show up, in my opinion. He kind of gassed out towards the end of the fight, too. Was a split decision loss. I think Cruz should have won that fight unanimously. And I don't know what the deal with all that crap he was talking after the fight was a little awkward. I still don't really fully get it. This beef that he has with one of the guys that work for Monster. It's just kind of awkward. In my opinion. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. Comment below if what's going on with that. All right, Alexander Rakic. You guys know this was an official play of mine. One of the biggest plays I've had in the card as well. A 5-unit play. And took out Thiago Santos. And minus 160, I cut the line at. And like I've been saying all along, I've been very high in Rakic. I felt very, very comfortable taking him here. And the fight was not as exciting as I thought it would be. I would have liked to have seen Rakic really mix it up a little bit earlier. I thought he could have won the fight a little bit more decisively, but nevertheless, he cruises his way to a victory there, in my opinion. Islam Makhachev, I told you the grappling would be too much for Dober. The line was very high, though. Then we had Petr Yan against Aljamain Sterling. Let's start talking about it. 6.5-unit play on Petr Yan. He was, in my opinion, dominating the fight, completely taking over the fight as the fight progressed to the later rounds, which I told you would be the case. Sterling gassed out. He was on way, in my opinion, to being finished regardless. That's how I saw that fight going there. Obviously, it was the 4th round, and Sterling got gifted, a golden gift there. Petr Yan makes a horrible mistake, knees him in the head, and Sterling milked it. In my opinion, he milked it. I know some of you guys are going to disagree with me there, but, I love you guys. Don't get too mad, but I think Sterling definitely milked it, made an intelligent decision because he was on way to lose, and now he's the champion, which is... You talk about something that's cringy. That's so cringy, watching him hold the belt and whatnot. And with his boys, there's a little after party on Instagram. I guess a lot of you probably saw that. And he's holding the belt. I mean, how's this guy the champion when he just got whooped up by Petr Yan? Something needs to be figured out in that. I mean, okay, if he can't continue, let's make it a no contest. I don't think that Yan deserved to lose that fight there, but whatever. Should have been a giant play there. I got the line at minus 115. I grabbed it at minus 110. The line was a gift. I told you guys Yan was going to dominate that fight, and when they run this fight back, Yan's going to destroy him again. I think Yan gets the finish there again, like he should have. And but again, he has to have better fighter IQ than that. He was too focused on the hands and forgot about the knees as well there. So, it's a mistake. He'll learn from it. He is still the champion, and he'll win the next fight, and he'll be a long reigning champion. Mark my words. That was 10 units of money that was coming back from just about. So you know what, you got, sometimes you got to take it on the chin. We'll get to the last play here in a second. Amanda Nunes takes out Megan Anderson. What can we say? I mean, we knew Nunes would show up and win that fight. We know Nunes is one of the greatest fighters of all time, the greatest female fighter of all time. I hope that we get to see her fight against some top talent moving forward. If some of these female fighters can figure it out. I always bark about the Shevchenko rematch, but let's see what's next for her. Then the last play of the card, which was my last play, we took Jan Blachowicz, 3-unit play, got it at plus 190. So almost 6 units of profit there. Takes out Izzy. I told you guys, Jan Blachowicz, this guy is a beast. He keeps getting underrated. You know, this guy is legit now. We got to give him his respect. Izzy looked very good in the first couple of rounds of the fight. Depending on how you scored it, right? The first 3 rounds were very close. I thought you could have gave Jan 2 of the 3. You could have gave him 1 of the 3. But in my opinion, you had to at least give him one of those first 3 rounds. That's how I felt. And then the last 2 rounds were, you know, full control for Jan Blachowicz. Should have all been 10-9 rounds. Should have been, in my opinion, this fight should have been, 50-47 or excuse me, not 50-47. It should have been 3 rounds to 2, Jan Blachowicz, 48-47. Or at the very least, it could have been, you could have gave Jan even 4 rounds, 49-46, I thought, but I didn't see it being Izzy's fight at all. I've heard a couple people talk about that, but not much. We saw the grappling come into play, later in the fight. We saw Jan Blachowicz with the striking. He has very much underrated striking. He was landing the cleaner shots in there, in my opinion. If you really were watching the exchanges, the cleaner shots were from Jan. The only thing that didn't look great was he was kind of backpedaling, but you know what? He was doing it his own way. He was counter-punching. I think it threw Izzy off. And I'm going to say it right now. A lot of you guys are going to be upset. I think that Jan Blachowicz takes out John Jones if Jones ever came back to the light heavyweight division. I'm telling you guys right now. I think that he's really in his groove. We've seen John having trouble with everyone as of recently anyway, but I think Jan Blachowicz is a legit champion, but I still think there's some guys in the division that are coming for him very strongly. You guys know some of those guys I'm talking about. Magomed Ankalaev, and who else we got? Alexander Rakic, to name a few. Excuse me, guys, here. I'm rattling off. Got my frappe. Like I said, I had a lot of thoughts about this UFC 259, so I won't bore you guys to death with all my opinions on this card. Just know it was a slightly profitable card, 3 unit profit, 3 units of profit on the night. Should have been a lot more, and it's all good though. We take it as a profitable night, and we understand it's the fight game. Sometimes crazy things happen in there, and we move on to the next card. And with no further ado, let's get into UFC Vegas 21, boys. All right, so for the first fight of the card, we got Jason Witt taking on Matheus Semelsberger. Both these guys coming off victories in their last fights. Both of them really haven't been inside the UFC or been a part of the UFC for that long. Matheus Semelsberger with just 1 fight where he took out Carlton Matheus. And before that, you take a look at his resume, was coming off 2 finishes before that. If you look at the fighters he was fighting, I wasn't really overwhelmed or super impressed with the records or the resumes of those guys. He came in against Carlton Matheus. Carlton's the guy we saw just fight Christos Giagos, a guy we just had on the show, MMA Live Discussion over on Instagram. And Christos Giagos absolutely dominated Carlton, was able to exploit his wrestling. We didn't really see that from Matheus. In my opinion, Matheus kind of just cruised his way to a lackluster victory there against Carlton. Was counter-punching decently. He has decent hands. Comes in pretty good shape. He looks to be a pretty fit guy. But again, I have not been overly impressed from what I've seen from him. But again, the book isn't out on him. I mean, we'll see how his career progresses. This is a big fight against Jason Witt. Jason Witt's a guy who's coming off a really good victory against Cole Williams. If you remember the Cole Williams fight, he was picking him up, putting him over his shoulder, slamming him, throwing him around. And we know that Jason Witt has some wrestling credentials. This guy was a legit wrestler. I believe he was, I think he was a Division I NCAA wrestler. This guy is a guy that's been training with James Krause and the boys over there, over at Gloria MMA Fitness. So he's getting proper training. Yes, the loss to Takashi Sato was not a good look, which was almost 8 months ago at this point. That wasn't a good look for him. I had some questions about his chin going into the last fight. I'm not sure if they're necessarily answered, but he looked very good in that fight. And I know he's the slight dog here, but I don't see any reason why I'm not going to edge Jason Witt. I think that his wrestling may show up here, and I think that his stand-up's still being worked on, and I think that he can go out there and he might be able to eke out a decision here. So I think this is a very close fight. So I'm going to side with the dog at a plus 110 level there, because I think this fight should be more like an even at the very least. This was his fight with what's his name, Cole Williams, I believe. Yeah, Cole Williams. And again, got the submission there. And that was Matheus Semelsberger, who was really on the back foot, throwing some nice counter punches against Carlton. Carlton is a guy, again, I'll say it, I don't know if I feel that he's a UFC caliber type of fighter. So again, we're going to have to see more from Semelsberger, but I'm going to take Jason Witt coming off the victory that he just had. I think he's going to bring some of that momentum inside the octagon, and I'll slightly edge him there. In the strawweight division, we got Jinh Frey taking on Gloria de Paula. Jinh Frey, ex-Invicta champion, a girl that's made her way over to the UFC, but that's had some trouble, obviously losing those 2 fights. But you take a look at the level of competition. Their losses are against solid opposition. Kay Hansen, a girl that really shows to have a lot of promise in the sport. And then lost to Luma Legbunmi, who is a very talented Muay Thai striker. That was a tough fight for her there as well. Jinh Frey still does come into the fights. She comes into her fights in excellent shape. She's very well-rounded. She's a strong girl. Kind of fades a little bit as the fight goes, in my opinion. A little bit muscle-bound. But she's a competent fighter. And, against the right girls, I don't see any reason why she can't go in there and get a victory. But now she's getting matched up with a girl in Gloria de Paula that shows to have a lot of skills. We saw her on Dana White's Contender Series where she really stepped up and was one of the stars of that show and that series. She was matched up with a fighter in Pauline Matheus, who really had a lot of hype going into that fight. She was a girl that, I think she trained with Ronda Rousey and all those judo specialists. She was one of the best judo players in the world. She was coming in and people were very high on her. And Gloria stepped up and absolutely stole the spotlight. Gloria's striking is very nasty. She's very technical. She's very well-rounded too. Let me say that too. I don't want to say just the striking. She's very well-rounded too. Her ground game was looking very well. You take a look at her record 5-2. I don't think that says nothing about what she's really about. You look at that 5-2 record, you're like, okay, what's really going on with her? But this is a girl that has a lot of potential. I think she can come into the UFC and hurt a lot of girls. I liked what I saw from her. So, in this fight, she's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. She's 2 inches taller. I think she'll have the longer frame. She's, more of the naturally bigger female in there, I think. Not that the size means too much, but I think she's going to be able to go in there, keep this fight standing, and really just use her striking to hurt Frey or to just easily win a decision here. So that's the route I'm going with. I'm taking Gloria de Paula to win the fight. Obviously, she is a favorite going into this match. The line's not horrible, though. And you keep an eye on Gloria moving forward. Only 25 years old and training at a shoot box with Diego Lima and them boys. And this girl has all the makings to be a star in the game. She's learned from these losses, and I think that this is a girl that you'll see start to unravel in front of us inside the UFC. So I think Gloria shows up here and gets the victory. We got Jonathan the Dragon Martinez taking on Davey Dangerous Grant. Davey Grant is on a 2-fight win streak in the UFC right now. You guys can pull it up and you can check it out for yourself if you don't believe me. I'm just messing. But Davey Grant, this is a guy that could easily be on a 4-fight losing skid. He had the split decision victory over Grigory Popov, which was a close fight. And then in his last fight, I guess we do got to give credit where credit's due. He was down, in my opinion, going into the 3rd round against Martin Day, and he clipped Day with an awkward shot, put him out. So that's 2 fights in a row now for Davey. Davey's 35 years old. I'm not going to say I'm the biggest fan of the skills that he brings to the table. If I'm being quite honest, I think that Jonathan Martinez should have no problem going in there and getting his hand raised. Davey Grant is not the best athlete, but he's crafty in his own right. Jonathan Martinez is a guy, the UFC's really been grooming him. I do believe that they're a believer in him. I think they're taking their time with him to an extent, and he's been showing up looking good. We saw him in the Frankie Saenz fight. That was a fight that, he was going in there against a guy up in his 40s, but he went in there and delivered, got the knockout, trains with the best of them. You see him with Alexander Hernandez. You see him with King of the Cage over here. This guy's got some real power in his hands. So he brushes shoulders with a lot of good fighters, and he's a dude that, the sky is the limit with him right now. Still has a couple years before he reaches his prime, whereas we got a guy in Davey Grant, who is 35 years old. I think that things are going to start to go a little bit downhill for him. If I'm being honest, I think that he's kind of overachieved in his own right, as far as what he's done in the UFC anyway. But he's a cool character. Nothing but respect for the guy, and good luck to him. But I think that Jonathan Martinez shows up and he handles business. You take a look at the line. Jonathan Martinez is in the minus 300 range, and I think that it's only going to get worse. You see a little bit of action coming in on him as we speak, and I think that Jonathan Martinez may settle in around, I don't know, minus 375, minus 400 on some of those books where people, like to attack those favorites towards the end, if you guys know what I'm talking about. And Jonathan Martinez goes in and gets his hand raised, most likely. Potentially even gets a TKO or KO finish there. Moving over to the featherweight division, we got Charles Jourdain taking on Marcelo Rojo El Pitbull, making his UFC debut. I'm sure a lot of you guys have enjoyed breaking down some of the tape on this guy. This guy is a very entertaining fighter. He's very aggressive in Marcelo. This guy's a lot of finishes on his resume, fighting over there in El Combate. Even in some of the fights, if you pull up, some of these guys were taking him down. I wouldn't say easily, but some of these guys were getting him down to the mat, and Marcelo was extremely, extremely aggressive off his back. So he threatens with his jiu-jitsu for sure. But Charles Jourdain, a very polished striker, a guy that has some real experience inside the UFC now up until this point. He battled in there with Des Green, took out Doo Ho Choi. Andre Feely, that was a fight that was very good for him. Even though he did lose that fight, it was I don't want to say it was necessarily a closely contested matchup. I guess you could say that. I thought Feely deserved to win that fight unanimously, if I remember correctly, even though it was a split decision. But still, that was excellent octagon time there. Had the draw with Joshua Culibao. Culibao is a talented fighter in his own right as well. But you want to start to see Charles Jourdain start to put things together, start stringing off more victories in a row. I think this is an opportunity for him to do that, but I do think that the line may be off here. You take a look at the line; they have it right around minus 255. The live line right now on this fight is pretty much right there. And I was a little surprised to see this guy Rojo as such a dog. I do get that he is a guy that's fought at lower weight classes before. He's an inch smaller here. I do think that he's a fighter that can get a finish at any given time. So he's definitely in this fight, but I'm going to slightly edge Charles Jourdain to win the fight. Like I said, just the octagon experience, and he's very, very technical on the feet. I like his leg kicks. I think he'll have the edge there. And I think he will be able to keep this fight standing for the most part. We take a look at El Pitbull. Like I said, this guy is an entertaining fighter, man. A very ferocious fighter. And he's getting a big shot here. It's a solid matchup. It really is a solid matchup. Jourdain, some of the best ink in the game as well. This guy has some dope tattoos. Has a great outlook on life. One day I will be too old to run or walk. Life is such a great gift. I'll make sure I have a life worth living before the Grim Reaper gets me. I'm gonna take Jourdain, and should be a good fight. Jourdain, a little bit of a bigger frame on him, and I think that's the main reason why people are edging him to win this fight here. But we'll see how it goes. All right, in the next fight, we got Yahya taking on Ray Rodriguez. An interesting matchup here, right? Yahya is a guy, you guys know I've talked about it before, a guy that's been battling in the WEC for such a long period of time, or such a long period of time ago, when the WEC was one of the best promotions in the world, one of the most underrated promotions in the world. He was a guy that went out there and consistently got guys down to the mat and submitted them. He's reminding me of Damian Maia in a lot of ways. Obviously different sizes, but like a miniature version of a Maia. This guy has good single leg takedowns, as you see him working on one right there. He rips a lot of these guys down to the mat, and he's a whiz in the mat. The striking never really elevated to a solid level in the fight game, in my opinion, but he does enough there to hang around and pull off victories here and there. And if your ground game is not up to par, he will go in there and he will submit you. He will take you out. And, now he's taking on the guy in Ray Rodriguez that made his UFC debut on only hours of notice against Brian Kelleher. And he went in there, was looking good on the beginning of that fight, was looking good. He was looking fast on the feet. His striking looks to be decent. But, as far as the fighter IQ, he sticks his head right in Brian Kelleher's guillotine when everybody knows that's one of his only moves that he has. And he's made a living submitting guys with that guillotine. and made a horrible mistake there. So, did lose to Tony Gravely on Dana White's Contender Series. Tony Gravely is one of the top prospects in the game. Put in work at top team and whatnot. Excellent wrestler, excellent taekwondo and striking skills. Just to speak on that here for a minute. But, I do. How about this? I do think that Ray Rodriguez is somewhat live. I don't want to go too hard on him. I think that he's shown a little bit of flashes on the feet. He's decently technical and decently quick to the punch. Yahya, like I said, is not a stud there. But when you stick your head into Kelleher's guillotine the way that you did, I cannot pick you to defeat a guy in Yahya that is very, very poised and intelligent inside the octagon, and could easily figure out a way to make this happen, or if not, pull something else off. And that's why I'm taking the legend in his own right, Yahya. Much respect to him. And going to have a 3-inch reach disadvantage, 1-inch height disadvantage. I'm not too worried about that if he can close the distance and pull off the sub. All right, this is an excellent female matchup in my opinion. Cortney Casey taking on JJ Aldrich. Two girls that really like to stand and bang. Two girls that really like to strike. Cortney Casey is a girl. I've been very frustrated with a lot of her losses because she shows so much promise in the feet, but sometimes her takedown defense isn't there. She gets taken down. She loses fights there. We have seen her pull off a submission or two down there, but overall, you guys know what I'm talking about. Jillian Robertson was able to get her down, get the sub. Cynthia Cavillo completely controlled her down in the mat. Michelle Waterson, that was more of a striking affair, but you guys get the point. Submitted Mara Barella with a first-round armbar. That was one of the submissions I was talking about. She looked pretty good there. But I think Cortney Casey's bread and butter is her Muay Thai, is her striking. She throws powerful leg kicks. Her punch, her boxing's good. She has some decent power in her hands. And she could hurt these fighters in the feet. She could hurt these fighters, these female fighters. JJ Aldrich, on the other hand, at 28 years old, JJ is a girl that, really has good boxing, very solid boxing, very, very good fundamentals and technique with the boxing. And she can give any girl a run for her money as well. And you see her brushing shoulders with some real talent in the game. A couple UFC fighters here and there. And JJ Aldrich is a girl that, has been going in there and really winning a lot of fights as of recently. If you look at her overall resume, and if you take a look at the losses, Macy Barber, that was a loss that she was in control of that fight. She was winning that fight. She got hurt late, in the second round, and got finished there. Something to keep an eye on. Maybe Cortney is going to be hurting her in a similar fashion. The Sabina Mazo fight was close. Sabina is a very talented striker, so you can look at that fight however you want there. I think this is a very close fight. We take a look at the live line, and JJ Aldrich is the favorite right around -150, and money's coming in on her. So people are a fan of what she brings to the table. I think that Cortney is very live here at a line like this. I think this fight maybe even should be slightly closer of a line, in my opinion. But I do get it to an extent. Cortney Casey, obviously married to Jakar Close. I believe they're married, or boyfriend and girlfriend. UFC fighter as well. And Jakar, who was supposed to fight recently, has been having some trouble, with the fights falling apart and whatnot as of recently. So to summarize this fight, I think this is a fight that can play out very closely. I like Aldrich. I like what she brings to the table with her hands. I think she'll be a little bit more smooth there with the boxing, but you got to keep an eye on Cortney's kicks as well and Cortney's power. And maybe Aldrich should edge this fight if she doesn't get hurt with the shot. And but so I have this fight close now, but I'm going to slightly edge JJ Aldrich to win the fight. A girl that still hasn't nearly hit her prime, in my opinion, whereas Cortney Casey's kind of cruising around that area now. Aldrich, 28 years old. I think she has some more to sharpen up, and I think she'll show us that as she steps into the octagon time and time. So I'm expecting a polished JJ Aldrich here, looking for a big victory. Now this next fight, this is a good one here. We got an entertaining matchup. We got Eryk Anders. It's always an entertaining fight when he steps in there. Same thing with Darren Stewart. Darren Stewart is a nasty power puncher, and so is Anders. This is a perfect matchup here, boys. I think we're looking for a potential fight of the night or knockout of the night between these two guys. And saying a knockout of a night would be that would be impressive if we see a knockout, because both of these guys have good chins as well. Darren Stewart, this is a guy I just made some money on. Very recently took out Maki Pitolo, looked very good in that fight, pulled off the guillotine. So showing layers into his overall fight game. But we do know his fight game's all about, sprawling and brawling, stuffing takedowns and hurting his opponents. The leg kicks are nasty. The power in the hands is very, very nasty. Eryk Anders is a guy, took a little bit of a beating against Jocko there. And he'll do that time to time. He'll go in there, he'll get beat down. But other fights, he'll show up and he'll put guys' lights out. We saw that against Vinicius Moreira, the jiu-jitsu specialist, who's not that good of a fighter, has been getting finished a lot. The Gerald Mearshart fight was a close fight. Lost to Khalil Roundtree. That was a fight he got really beat down in. We talked about fights like that. Close fight with Elias Theodoro. This is the route I'm going to go with this fight. I like Darren Stewart here. He's the slight favorite, right around minus 185. I think that the line is reasonable. I wouldn't even be surprised if more action comes in on Darren. I think Darren will be quicker to the punch. I think he'll have a little bit more power in his punches and kicks as well. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight played out in a similar fashion to the Khalil Roundtree versus Eryk Anders. Saying that Darren Stewart shows up and gets to showcase his striking. This is a tailor-made matchup. I think Anders will be willing to hang around and brawl it out. And, nothing but respect to Anders. We've had him on the show, MMA Live Discussion Episode 5, way back in the day. June 4th, we're almost coming up to a year on that. Got a little bit more time, but time is flying. The old MMA Live Discussion, I had the fan shining in the back. Try to fix some of these things as I go on. But, Eryk Anders is a cool dude. He was chilling. We had a good conversation. If you guys want to check that out, that was a good talk. I know a lot of you guys all talk about his wife's girlfriend, that porn star. We talked about that a little bit. Forget her name, but I know a lot of you guys go nuts about that. But again, Darren Stewart, this is a tailor-made fight for him, in my opinion. I like him. I like him here. And I got Darren Stewart to win this fight and to bounce back into the win column. And like I said, keep an eye on the power of his hands and the kicks and all that. And as far as the reach and the height, pretty much identical. Very, very slight difference. Just a 1 inch on the height, 1 inch on the reach. All right, we got a cool fight here. In the flyweight division, we got Matheus Nicolau taking on Manel Kape. And, if this fight looks kind of familiar to you, it's because we just saw Manel Kape fight not too long ago against Alexander Pantoja. You guys know I was on Pantoja there. And Kape is a guy that's shown he's a very talented fighter. Even since joining the UFC, he was in there to fight. This guy is explosive. And obviously, we just talked about him. He made a name for himself over in Japan, taking on a lot of big names, a lot of the big Japanese fighters. He has that one-touch knockout power if he hits you, especially in the hands. That's where it's at with him in the boxing. He's going to come in there. He's going to try to look to put Matheus Nicolau out. Matheus is a very well-rounded fighter. A lot of you guys remember him from The Ultimate Fighter, Brazil back in the day. This is a guy, very well-rounded, good jiu-jitsu, good striking, and he reminds me of Alexander Pantoja a lot. So that's why I said that earlier. I think this fight may play out somewhat closely to what we saw in the Pantoja fight. I am going to edge Matheus Nicolau in this fight. The UFC caught him not too long ago. He bounced back with some big victories. Went in there, got a nice finish over Alan Gabriel. Pulled off another victory. And then, obviously he was coming off that tough loss to Dustin Ortiz, a guy that has absolutely vanished on us. Dustin Ortiz. But, we take a look. The reach advantage will be for Manel Kape by 2 inches. Matheus is an inch taller. I just think that Matheus is a guy that's very hungry right now, 28 years old. And like I said, I think he is the boyfriend or the husband of that fighter Gloria. And this is a good fight for Matheus to get back into the UFC and I think, get a victory over a guy, Manel Kape here. And okay, so you know what? This is the fighter. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, see, I knew we'd figure things out on the fly over here. So this is the girlfriend of his who was on Dana White's Contender Series, who looked amazing, which is not the other girl, even though they remind me of each other in a lot of ways. But I knew that he did have a girlfriend inside the octagon. This was another fighter that really made a big splash on Dana White's Contender Series. So just to iron that out for you guys. All right, we'll go on to the next fight. and that will be Angela Hill versus Ashley Yoder. This was a fight that was supposed to happen for the second time not too long ago. Got rescheduled. Obviously, these girls fought a while back. And Angela Hill is a girl. Don't let the 2 losses fool you. You should have took out Claudia Gadelha. And the Michelle Waterson fight was very close as well. And, I joked about her being the split decision loss queen. And she's really put things together, in my opinion. Her striking has looked great. She could be on a 5-fight win streak right now. And she's really been motivated. Her and her coach have been doing their thing for a while now, really, really pushing to be a champion in the division. And nothing's really looked to have slowed them down. Even those losses, they still show up more motivated than ever, and they're coming for more and more victories. And this is a fight where she should get a victory. Take it on Ashley Yoder. Ashley Yoder, a good ground game fighter. This girl has some good jiu-jitsu. We've seen her go in there and sneak out decisions by taking fighters down, taking their back, controlling them a little bit in fights where, if it wasn't for that, I think that she'd be getting beat up on the feet. Not crazy about her striking. Kind of has that unorthodox southpaw type style. She's kind of keeps her head up high, tries to use her reach and whatnot, but she's worked on it. But at the same time, I think that Angela Hill is going to shine on the feet against Yoder. I expect Hill to hurt her there. I expect Hill to be able to stuff the takedown, keep the fight standing, and continue to beat her down there, where she should, get a victory, a unanimous decision victory. Maybe Hill gets a stoppage. I'm not really going to bank on it, but yeah, I got Angela Hill, and the line is where you would expect it to be. Obviously, we've been watching this line since where the fight was recently announced going into that fight week. And people are high on Angela Hill for the right reasons. So just hope that Yoder doesn't show up and somehow sneak in a couple of takedowns or hold it back and maybe eke out a split decision victory against Hill. We've seen it happen so much, but I don't expect that to be the case. Angela Hill should show up and get a solid W there. All right. In the next fight, we got Ige taking on Gavin Tucker. I talked about this fight a little bit earlier when we were doing the breakdown video, or to start things off with the breakdown video. This is a fight that kind of stood out to me. Gavin Tucker is a guy, we talk about his UFC debut where he came in and completely styled on Sam Cecilia. Then he had that tough loss to Rick Glenn, which was one of the worst losses I've seen in a long time. If you guys remember that, he couldn't be put out, but he just kept getting beat down by Rick Glenn. But he took some time off, which was the right move in my opinion, and has bounced back and looked amazing in the last 3 fights, stringing off 3 victories in a row and topping things off with the Billy Q victory. Billy Q is a very talented fighter. Gavin Tucker is a very slick striker. He's very, very smooth, very technical and quick with the striking, has shown developments in his game with the grappling as well. So this guy isn't the guy that you're going to go in there and just exploit on the ground. When we know Dan Ige, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, is a very, very talented ground fighter as well. Very talented striker too. He's tough. He's coming forward. He's looking to crack you. And, coming off that loss to Calvin Kattar, that was actually a decently close fight. He came back into the fight towards the 3rd round, but Kattar is a guy we hold very high. Know he's coming off a tough loss. We still know he's a very talented fighter. Took out Barbosa. I thought Barbosa won that fight, but still, showed to be very tough in the 3rd round again. Ige has great cardio. He's not a guy you can go in there and push out easily. And took out Bektik, Kevin Aguilar. Dan Ige is a talented fighter. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here and a 1-inch height advantage. So some things that are going for him there. Looks like his girl's about to have a baby. So he has a baby on the way. Got some big things going on in his life. He looks to be very motivated. Who better to be rolling on the mat with than the guy in Khabib? Khabib's been everywhere, huh? Khabib's been bouncing around everywhere. Gavin Tucker, though, a guy. Again, I think this guy's very, very talented on the feet. And, besides that one fight that he lost where he got touched up early and it kind of threw him off his rocker and then he got beat down, he's been looking very, very good in there. And it's the fight game. It could happen to anybody. In regards to that one fight, I think that when he shows up and, barring not getting tagged or being put on Queer Street, this guy is extremely talented. And I don't see why he can't go out there and take Dan Ige out. We take a look at the line right now. We got Gavin Tucker as a slight dog, plus 110. So, yeah, this is almost a pick 'em. Tucker is a slight dog, and I'm going to take Tucker. I'm taking Tucker to win the fight. He's really impressed me with what he's done in the last 3 fights, and I'm going to back him up here against a very tough fighter in Dan Ige. So let's see how that fight plays out. All right, we got 3 fights left. Ben Rothwell takes on Philipe Lins. Both these guys coming off a loss. Philipe Lins coming off 2 losses where, he was fighting Andrei Arlovski. That was a fight that he was the favorite. He was supposed to go in there and knock Arlovski out. Since around that time, we've noticed that Arlovski just keeps hanging in there. Well, besides his last fight, but you guys get the point. Philipe Lins, a lot of people were high on him. This guy has good knockout power. He was going in there. He was knocking dudes out. He took out Jared Rosholt and Josh Copeland. Both of those guys are reputable names. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with them. Jared Rosholt, very high caliber wrestler, tough fighter. Had his little stint in UFC. And Josh Copeland as well is a well-known name. Lost to Arlovski and lost to Tanner Boser, where everyone was getting high on Boser. I don't know what happened to him, but then you got Ben Rothwell, a legend in the game. Ben Rothwell, a guy I've been watching forever, since back in the the IFL, or what was it? The IFL or whatever that old one was. I think he was a champion over there. He's been around the block forever. Big Ben did not look good in his last fight. Was not impressed at all from what I saw from him in that Tybura fight. I know Tybura has been really putting it together as of recently, but still, Rothwell gassed out in that fight, really slowed down going into the 3rd round. Ate a lot of shots. Rothwell has one of the best chins in the game. He's not a guy that's going to be put out, so that he has that going for him. If Lins is able to connect with some big shots, shouldn't be too much of an issue. I think Rothwell will walk through those, but how will he perform in the later rounds? I've been back and forth on this fight. We take a look at the live line. It pretty much is a pick'em, and Big Ben coming in with a 2-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach advantage. I'm going to give Big Ben another shot here, even though he's creeping up to his 40s. We know we've seen guys in the heavyweight division last a little longer as far as the age goes, but this is a fight that he really needs to show up. Otherwise, things aren't looking good for Big Ben. He did knock out Stefan Struve, did take out Ovince St. Preux in a close fight, but, lost to Arlovski, lost to Blagoy Ivanov, and, remember, he had that issue with performance-enhancing drugs where he had a little layoff too, so you got to wonder where he's at physically and whatnot. But when he puts it together, he's a guy that's been very impressive. I'm going to say Ben, can eat the shots of Lins, and I think that Lins will start to gas out as well. Lins is a guy that doesn't necessarily have the best gas tank either. So I got to go with the legend and Big Ben there. All right, in the co-main event, we got Misha Cirkunov taking on Ryan Spann. Misha Cirkunov, coming off a long layoff, got that victory against Jimmy Crute. That's a fight that is not necessarily the best memory for me. I had to play on Jimmy Crute there. You guys know I've been very high on Jimmy Crute for some time. Jimmy Crute hurt Misha there. Got too aggressive, ended up getting caught in a submission. Misha has some legit submission skills. If you make any type of mistakes, he will get you down to the mat, pull off a head and arm triangle choke. He'll pull off all different types of subs, guillotines. This guy is a very fit fighter. Comes in phenomenal shape. He's a beast of a man, and he's another name to add to the division that's just has a lot of talent, and we'll see how far he can push it. 34 years old. This is definitely his last little stint. He needs to start stringing off some victories and try to push his way towards the top if he wants to, eventually fight for the belt. Ryan Spann is a guy, came in as a big favorite against Sam Alvey. Barely pulled that victory off. Got very tired in there, was pushing for the takedown. Sam Alvey was stuffing it. I do not like his takedown entries. I think that he'll try to use his striking here. And even on the feet with his striking, it seems like he gasses out a lot. Gets a little slow in there with the striking. Of course, he has the crazy reach that he likes to use, that he could try to use that here. But I think Misha Cirkunov will work around that, and I think eventually he'll get some takedowns. And I think he'll be the fresher fighter going into the later rounds. And I don't see any reason why Misha Cirkunov can't pull this fight off. And you see him here pulling off the submission on Crute. And look at Alvey about to crack Spann on the side of the head there. So again, Spann is a guy that I'm not necessarily crazy about, crazy about his skills. We'll see if he can show up and get a victory over a tough customer in Misha, but I think Misha shows up and pulls the fight off. And we take a look at the live line right now. Misha is going to be the live line. Where are you at? Misha's right around minus 140, minus 145. But, you know, could be worse in my opinion. And I do like Misha there. All right. We made it. We're at the main event, boys. Shout out to everybody that stuck with us throughout this entire breakdown. What can we say, man? The fights have been epic. We talked about UFC 259 a little bit earlier. We got a lot of big fights coming up our way as well. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. Like always, I'll always say I appreciate you guys because I really do. And hope everything's going good with all you guys out there. What else? Catch me on Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _. I'm very active on there. I'm doing a lot of live videos, a lot of fighter interviews, all that stuff. Obviously, I'm uploading them here after the fact as well. And I'll be working on new content for you guys. Just keeping you guys updated there. If you guys ever want to reach out to me through Instagram. Or you can reach out to me through email, mmafortuneteller@gmail.com. If you guys are interested in my pricing for my packages or anything like that, or just want to reach out to say what's up, come reach out to me, man. I'm always here, man, to BS and whatnot. And, you know, if I do take a little bit of time to get to some of your guys' messages, my bad. It's just sometimes they fill up, you know what I mean? So I try to get to all of them, but don't take it personal. I'll catch each of your guys' messages eventually. So much appreciation, all you guys. And now we got the main event. Leon Rocky Edwards taking on Belal Muhammad. Leon Edwards, a guy that hasn't fought in quite some time. It's almost been, about a year and a half since he took out RDA. Took out Gunnar Nelson in a close fight. Thought Gunny almost edged that fight. I don't know. But Leon Edwards, a guy that gets a lot of respect, in my opinion. You know, I don't know. Some people may say he doesn't get enough respect. I think he gets a lot of respect. I mean, he's 18-3. He does have some big name victories. I think that's part of the reason why. Taking out, Cerrone, I guess, Vincent Luque, Albert Tumanov was a tough customer. RDA win, stuff like that. So he's on a big win streak as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's on an 8-fight win streak. And the only other losses that he's had as of recently were against very, very formidable opponents. Claudio Silva, split decision loss, and then the champion, Kamaru Usman. So I get it, but these fights keep falling out. Supposed to have his big moment against Woodley right when the pandemic started in London. He would have took out Woodley. That would have been another big victory there for him. And then we kept having the Khamzat fight canceled. Obviously, there's a lot going on with that, the Khamzat situation. I hope he does not retire. We'll see how that goes. I don't think he will. Now he's fighting Belal Muhammad. I think this is a solid fight for him here. Belal Muhammad is somewhat deserving of this fight as well. I mean, he's been going in there. He's been getting victories 4 in a row, against solid fighters. I would say that. Solid fighters. Sato, good, Lima, but not the biggest of names. I think this is a big step up in competition for him. You got to love Muhammad's style. It's relentless. He's good. Like I always say, he's going to fight for your money. This guy will fight for your money. So if you're looking to take a dog shot on him, it's like you got to either put Muhammad away or you got to really style on him. But he's going to be coming forward and he's going to be looking to hurt you. Leon Edwards is a guy that's going to be more athletic in there, more fluid on the feet. I think he's the better fighter here. Obviously, the line shows. A lot of people agree with me on that observation, and I think that Edwards is a solid athlete that's been really grinding since his last fight. I know it's been a long time, but this guy's been very motivated if you look into it. And I think he's showing up here to get a big main event victory to remind everybody why he was the guy that got a lot of, a lot of notoriety as of recently. And he'll get things going where he left off. And, but Belal, a guy that, like I said, man, this guy will show up to fight, always representing Palestine. Now, I'm a fan of Belal and what he brings to the table. He's a cool dude. He has a funny Instagram. Can't really dislike this guy, in my opinion. And I don't know if he has what it takes to go out there and take out Leon as far as from a straight skill set. Take a look at how they match up physically. Leon's going to be 3 inches taller. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. The footwork is smooth in there. And he's unorthodox with the striking as well. I think he'll be quicker to the punch against Belal. And, Belal's a 2-1 underdog. 18-3. Maybe you think you see some value there. You're going to get a little run for your money with some 2-1 odds. 5-round fight. Belal has a hell of a gas tank. I'm not going to knock you for that if you think you see that, but I'm going to slightly edge Leon Edwards to win the fight. So that's how I'm going with that. And maybe we'll be able to see this fight eventually. I don't know. Maybe just hopefully we'll see Chimaev fight regardless. So, all right, guys. That's going to sum up the fight card. I'm going to have a lot of fight card predictions coming at you guys. I'm going to get them out to you earlier. I'm going to be breaking down the next couple of events and getting them out to you earlier. And what I'll do is when they have these new fights that are added to the card and whatnot, I'll just break out individual breakdown videos for you guys. I'll just keep throwing them up here for you guys. I appreciate all you. Please like and subscribe on your way out. What else? I hope all you guys are healthy out there, enjoying life. Slowly, life's getting back to normal. And I hope you guys are all enjoying these fights. And like I said, you're healthy, you're happy. You guys take care. Signing out. The Teller. The MMA fortune teller.
The Teller. The Teller. The Teller. The Teller. The Teller.